He broke in truce and an unexpected brew. The arrival of the warlord. Commander Thane stood at the observation deck of Outpost 7, watching the massive warship descend through Earth's atmosphere. The vessel was unlike anything humanity had seen before, sleek, dark, and covered in weapons that could level entire cities. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his uniform. This wasn't supposed to happen. The ceasefire had been holding for 3 months. The alien species known as the Kralix had agreed to peace talks after decades of territorial disputes across the outer colonies. Their representatives were supposed to arrive next week, not today. And they certainly weren't supposed to arrive in a warship commanded by General Vexthor himself, the most feared military leader in Kralix history. "Sir, they're requesting permission to land," Lieutenant Chen said, her voice tight with worry. Thane nodded slowly. "Grant it. We don't have much choice." The warship touched down on the designated landing pad, its engines creating a thunderous roar that shook the entire facility. As the dust settled, a massive ramp extended from the ship's belly. What emerged made every human present take an involuntary step backward. General Vexthor was enormous, standing nearly 3 meters tall. His scales were a deep crimson color, marked with scars from countless battles. 4 arms hung at his sides, each capable of crushing a human skull. His eyes glowed with an amber light that seemed to pierce through everything they observed. Behind him marched a squad of elite Kralix warriors, each one looking ready for combat. Thane forced himself to walk forward, extending his hand in the universal gesture of greeting. Vexthor stared at the hand for a long moment before ignoring it completely. "I am here under orders from the Kralix High Command," Vexthor announced, his voice like grinding stones. "There has been an incident at Colony 12. Kralix civilians were attacked. The peace talks are suspended until we receive answers." Thane felt his stomach drop. "General, I assure you we have no knowledge of any attack. Our forces have strict orders to maintain the ceasefire." "Then you have rebels among your people," Vexthor growled. "Or you are lying." The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Human soldiers shifted nervously, hands moving closer to their weapons. The Kralix warriors mirrored the movement. One wrong word could restart a war that had already claimed millions of lives. An unexpected mediator. That's when Private Marcus Webb stepped forward, carrying a tray with a steaming cup on it. The young soldier had been assigned to the outpost's mess hall and apparently hadn't received the memo about the diplomatic crisis unfolding. "Sorry to interrupt, Commander," Marcus said cheerfully, completely oblivious to the deadly standoff. "But you asked for your afternoon coffee before the meeting. Figured you'd want it now since, well, the meeting started early." Every eye turned to stare at him. Marcus finally seemed to realize what he'd walked into, his face going pale. But before he could retreat, Vexthor's attention fixed on the cup. "What is that substance?" the general demanded. "It's, coffee, sir," Marcus stammered. "It's a beverage. We drink it." Vexthor's eyes narrowed. "For what purpose?" "Well, it helps us wake up, stay alert, think clearly," Marcus explained, gaining a bit of confidence. "It's got caffeine in it. Most humans drink it daily." The general stepped closer, leaning down to sniff the cup. His nostrils flared. "It smells bitter. Acidic. Why would anyone consume something so unpleasant?" Marcus shrugged. "The taste grows on you, I guess. And it really does help. Especially during long shifts or stressful situations." "Stressful situations," Vexthor repeated slowly. He straightened to his full height, looking between Marcus and Thane. "You humans consume this substance to enhance your mental capabilities during conflict?" "Not exactly," Thane interjected, sensing dangerous waters. "It's just a common drink. Nothing special." But Vexthor wasn't listening. His warrior mind had already jumped to conclusions. A combat stimulant disguised as a simple beverage. Clever. The Kralix have similar compounds, but they are strictly regulated military supplies. He turned to his warriors. "This explains much about human resistance during the war. Sir, I really don't think, Thane started, but Vexthor cut him off with a raised hand. I wish to try this coffee, the general announced. If it truly affects mental clarity, I should understand its properties. Marcus looked at Thane helplessly. The commander gave a small nod. What else could they do? Refusing might be seen as an insult or an admission that coffee was actually some kind of military secret. I'll, need to make a fresh cup, Marcus said. This one's prepared specifically for the commander. Different humans like it prepared different ways. Vexthor's eyes gleamed with interest. Customizable enhancement formulas. Sophisticated. 10 minutes later, they were all standing in the outpost's mess hall, watching Marcus prepare a cup of coffee. The scene was surreal, a massive alien warlord surrounded by his warriors, observing a nervous private operate a standard coffee maker as if it were advanced alien technology. First, you need the beans, Marcus explained, holding up a bag. They're actually seeds from a plant that grows on Earth. We roast them, grind them up, and then run hot water through them. You destroy the plant material through heat, then pulverize it, then subject it to thermal liquid extraction, Vexthor translated into more technical terms. Complex preparation for a simple beverage. I guess when you put it that way, Marcus admitted. He poured the hot water through the grounds, and fresh coffee began dripping into the pot. The aroma filled the room. Several Kralix warriors stirred uneasily. One of them spoke in their native language. Vexthor responded sharply, and they fell silent. They find the smell disturbing, Vexthor explained. It reminds them of certain toxic plants on our homeworld. But I have encountered many things that smell dangerous but are harmless to other species. Marcus poured a cup and handed it to the general. Fair warning, sir, it's hot. And bitter. Most people add things to make it taste better, milk, sugar, cream. I will consume it as nature intended, Vexthor declared. He raised the cup to his lips and took a cautious sip. The expression that crossed his face was impossible to read. He stood perfectly still for a moment, then took another sip. Then another. General, one of his warriors asked in their language. Vexthor ignored him, draining half the cup in one long gulp. He lowered it slowly, his amber eyes seeming to glow brighter. This is extraordinary, he said quietly. I can feel my thoughts sharpening. The exhaustion from the long journey is fading. My combat reflexes are heightening. He looked at Marcus with something that might have been respect. This coffee is indeed a powerful substance. The revelation. Over the next hour, something remarkable happened. Vexthor, fueled by his first experience with caffeine, became talkative. He explained that he'd been traveling for 2 weeks straight to reach Earth, dealing with political pressures from hardliners in his government who wanted to restart the war. He was exhausted, irritable, and struggling to think through the diplomatic complexities of the situation. But now, he said, accepting his third cup of coffee, I can see the situation more clearly. The attack on Colony 12 was likely perpetrated by extremists on either side who wished to sabotage peace. Blaming your entire species was emotional thinking, not strategic thinking. Thane seized the opportunity. General, if you'll allow it, we can share all our intelligence on the incident. We want peace as much as you do. Most of us, anyway. Vexthor nodded slowly. Yes. Peace benefits both our peoples. The hardliners on my council cannot see this because they are tired, angry, stuck in old patterns of thought. He looked down at his coffee cup. Perhaps they need coffee. That comment broke the tension. Several people actually laughed, including some of the Kralix warriors who were beginning to understand the absurdity of the situation. Tell me, Vexthor said, turning to Marcus, how much of this coffee does humanity produce? Oh, millions of tons annually, Marcus replied. It's one of our biggest crops. We've been drinking it for centuries. The general's eyes widened. Millions of tons. For centuries. He looked at Thane. And you never thought to mention this in trade negotiations? Sir, we genuinely didn't think it would be of interest, Thane said honestly. It's just coffee. Just coffee, Vexthor repeated, then laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that startled everyone. You humans have been consuming a powerful cognitive enhancer for centuries and consider it so mundane you barely mention it. Meanwhile, my people struggle with stimulants that have terrible side effects and limited availability. He set down his cup and looked around the room. I propose a modification to our peace agreement. In addition to the territorial arrangements we were negotiating, I want Earth to provide coffee to Kralix space. As much as you can supply. Thane blinked. You want to trade for coffee? I want to ensure my government and military have access to this substance, Vexthor corrected. If coffee can help me think clearly after weeks of stress, imagine what it could do for the entire Kralix command structure. Clearer thinking means better decisions. Better decisions mean fewer conflicts. Marcus raised his hand hesitantly. Sir, I should mention that coffee does have some side effects. Jitters, anxiety, dependence if you drink too much. Acceptable trade-offs for enhanced cognitive function, Vexthor interrupted. Every combat stimulant has side effects. This coffee seems remarkably mild by comparison. Over the next several hours, the diplomatic situation transformed completely. Vexthor, now fully caffeinated and thinking clearly, worked with Thane to analyze the Colony 12 incident. They quickly determined it had been a coordinated attack by extremists from both species trying to reignite the war. We should have seen this coming, Vexthor admitted, accepting his fifth cup of coffee. But exhaustion clouds judgment. I was ready to believe the worst about humanity because I was too tired to consider alternatives. We all make mistakes when we're exhausted, Thane agreed. Maybe that's been part of the problem all along. Both our species have been fighting for so long, we're too tired to think straight. Vexthor nodded thoughtfully. You may be correct. War is exhausting. Peace requires energy we have not had. As the night wore on, something unprecedented occurred. The Kralix general and human commander sat together in the mess hall, drinking coffee and actually talking, not as enemies or even as reluctant allies, but as two tired leaders trying to find a better path forward. Marcus kept the coffee flowing, eventually persuading some of the Kralix warriors to try it as well. Their reactions varied from disgust to fascination, but several of them seemed to appreciate its effects. Private Webb, Vexthor said as Marcus refilled his cup, you may have done more for peace today than any diplomat or soldier. This simple act of sharing your drink has changed my entire perspective. Marcus flushed with embarrassment. I was just doing my job, sir. Making coffee. Never underestimate the power of simple gestures, the general replied. Sometimes the smallest actions have the largest consequences. By dawn, they had worked out a preliminary agreement. The peace talks would resume as scheduled. Both sides would cooperate to hunt down the extremists responsible for the Colony 12 attack. And Earth would begin exporting coffee to Kralix space, with Marcus Webb honored as an official cultural liaison, though his primary job would still be explaining how to properly brew the stuff. As Vexthor prepared to leave, he turned to Thane one final time. Commander, I arrived here believing I would be demanding answers at gunpoint. Instead, I am leaving with a new understanding and a beverage that may change my entire civilization. Tell me honestly, is all of human culture this unexpected? Thane smiled. General, you have no idea. The diplomatic aftermath. 3 weeks after Vexthor's unexpected visit, Earth's diplomatic corps was still trying to process what had happened. The official reports read like science fiction. An alien warlord had nearly restarted an interstellar war but was deterred by coffee. News networks across human space were having a field day with headlines like Brewing Peace and The Shot Heard Round the Galaxy. Commander Thane found himself promoted to Ambassador Thane, specifically assigned to handle Earth's new relationship with the Kralix Confederation. His first official meeting in this role was with General Vexthor via holographic communication. The general appeared in Thane's office, his hologram flickering slightly. He was holding a coffee mug, apparently he'd acquired quite a collection. Ambassador, Vexthor greeted him formally. I trust your promotion came with appropriate celebration? More like appropriate confusion, General, Thane replied honestly. My government is still trying to understand exactly what happened. What happened, Bexthor said, taking a sip of his coffee, is that I experienced human culture in an authentic way, not through formal diplomatic channels. I saw how you treat even a simple drink with care and craftsmanship. I saw how a low-ranking soldier felt comfortable enough to interrupt a crisis to deliver that drink. These small things revealed more about humanity than years of negotiations. Thane nodded slowly. And the coffee itself? Has become controversial, Bexthor admitted with what might have been amusement. Half of my government is now addicted to it. The other half wants it banned as a dangerous foreign substance. I am somewhere in the middle, enjoying my fourth cup of the day while trying to manage the political chaos. Fourth cup? Thane raised his eyebrows. General, for a species that's never encountered caffeine before, you might want to moderate your intake. I am moderating, Bexthor said seriously. Yesterday I had 7. My physician has expressed concerns, but she is also drinking coffee now, so her complaints lack conviction. The situation would have been funny if it weren't so diplomatically complex. Earth's coffee industry was suddenly facing demands they'd never imagined. The Kraliks wanted millions of tons immediately, and they were willing to pay premium prices. Agricultural corporations were scrambling to increase production. We have another complication, Bexthor continued. Other species have heard about coffee. The Tethrians want to try it. The Andari are demanding samples. Even the isolationist Zorkai have sent inquiries. Thane felt a headache coming on. So coffee is becoming a galactic commodity? More than that, Bexthor said grimly. It is becoming a political issue. Species that can access it will have cognitive advantages. Those that cannot will fall behind. We are watching the potential formation of a coffee-based power structure. You're serious? Completely. Bexthor set down his mug. I have spent the last 3 weeks studying human history through the lens of coffee consumption. Did you know that coffee houses were centers of intellectual development during your Enlightenment period? That coffee fueled industrial revolutions and scientific breakthroughs? I did know that, actually, Thane said. But I never thought it was that significant. Because you have always had it, Bexthor replied. You cannot see its impact because it is woven into your culture. But from an outside perspective, it is clear that coffee has been a silent force in human advancement. And now other species want that same advantage. The unexpected consequences. The coffee trade began in earnest 2 months after the initial incident. Earth exported its first shipment to Kralik space, 10,000 tons of various roasts and blends. Marcus Webb, now officially a cultural liaison despite his protests, traveled with the shipment to teach proper brewing techniques. His reports back to Earth were fascinating and alarming in equal measure. They're obsessed, Marcus wrote in his 3rd weekly update. The Kraliks have redesigned their military briefing rooms to include coffee stations. Their high command meetings now have mandatory coffee breaks. General Bexthor has commissioned scientists to study optimal brewing temperatures and extraction methods. They're treating coffee like it's some kind of miracle substance. But it wasn't just enthusiasm. Marcus also reported concerning developments. Kralik soldiers who consumed too much coffee experienced severe side effects. Their biology wasn't adapted to handle large amounts of caffeine. Several had to be hospitalized with what human doctors called caffeine toxicity, but which manifested in unique ways for Kralik's physiology. Their scales start changing color, Marcus wrote. Bright, electric patterns that apparently indicate severe metabolic stress. And their forearmed coordination gets weird, they can't seem to control all their limbs properly. One colonel tried to drink his 10th cup of the day and ended up punching himself in the face with 3 different hands. Despite these issues, demand only increased. The Kraliks were convinced that coffee was the key to matching human cognitive abilities. They believed that humanity's success in the war had been partly due to this cognitive enhancer that humans consumed daily. They're not entirely wrong, Thane admitted in a confidential memo to Earth's government. Caffeine does enhance alertness and cognitive function. If we'd been fighting a war while exhausted and they suddenly got access to a safe stimulant, it would have changed the balance. They're just overestimating the effect because it's so novel to them. The situation became more complex when other alien species began demanding access to coffee. The Tethrians, who communicated through crystalline vibrations, discovered that caffeine made their thought transmission clearer and faster. The Andari, gaseous beings who relied on chemical reactions for consciousness, found that coffee vapors enhanced their cognitive processes in unexpected ways. Each species reacted to caffeine differently, but almost all of them wanted more. The coffee diplomacy crisis. 6 months into the coffee revolution, as the media had dubbed it, Earth faced an unprecedented diplomatic challenge. Demand for coffee vastly exceeded supply. Species were competing for shipments, offering incredible prices. Some were threatening trade sanctions if they didn't receive priority access. A black market emerged almost immediately. Smugglers stole coffee shipments and sold them to the highest bidders. Counterfeit coffee appeared across the galaxy, dangerous blends that caused serious health problems for species unfamiliar with proper preparation. "We've created a problem," Ambassador Thane told his staff during an emergency meeting. "We shared something innocent, and it's turned into a source of conflict." "Not just conflict," his chief aide replied. "The Kraliks are already growing coffee plants in their own territory. They've reverse-engineered the entire cultivation process. In 5 years, they won't need us at all." "And that's when things get interesting," another aide added. "Because once multiple species control coffee production, they'll start competing. There could be coffee wars." The absurdity of that phrase, coffee wars, would have been laughable if it weren't so plausible. The crisis came to a head when General Vexthor requested another in-person meeting. This time, he arrived with representatives from 6 other species, all of them looking to Earth for guidance on what they were calling the coffee situation. They gathered in a newly constructed conference center designed to accommodate multiple alien biologies. Vexthor, now sporting a custom-made coffee mug with the Kraliks military insignia, opened the discussion. "Ambassador Thane," he began formally, "we have come to acknowledge a truth. Coffee has become more than a trade commodity. It is now a cultural and political force that affects multiple civilizations. We need to establish protocols." A Tethrian delegate chimed in, her crystalline structure resonating with translated speech. "Our people have integrated coffee into daily life. But we lack the historical context humans have. We need guidance on proper usage, cultural significance, and potential dangers." An Andari representative added, "And we need to address the inequality. Only wealthy individuals can afford imported Earth coffee. This is creating social divisions." Thane listened to each concern, feeling the weight of responsibility. Humanity had accidentally introduced a powerful substance to the galaxy without considering the consequences. "You're right," he finally said. "We've approached this purely as a trade opportunity without thinking about the broader implications. That was short-sighted." He stood, looking around the room. "Coffee is part of human culture, yes. But it's not sacred. It's not ours to control. If you want to grow it, brew it, and share it however you see fit, that's your right." Vexthor tilted his head. "You would give up exclusive control? The economic advantages?" "We don't want to build peace on economic coercion," Thane replied. "That's not sustainable. Instead, I propose something different. Earth will freely share everything we know about coffee, cultivation, preparation, cultural context, health considerations. We'll help any species that wants to establish their own production. No monopolies, no artificial scarcity." The room fell silent. Finally, a Zorkai delegate spoke, their translated voice uncertain. "Why would you do this?" "You could maintain dominance in this market." "Because that would defeat the purpose," Thane said simply. "General Vexthor, you said coffee helped you think clearly enough to choose peace over war. If we use coffee to create new conflicts or inequalities, we've learned nothing." Vexthor stood, walking over to Thane. The general extended one of his 4 hands. Your species continues to surprise me, Ambassador. Most would exploit this advantage. You are choosing to share it. It's just coffee, Thane said with a slight smile, shaking the offered hand. No, Vexthor replied seriously. It has never been just coffee. It is a symbol of how humanity approaches the galaxy, with openness, even when it costs them advantage. This is why peace with your species is possible. The new tradition. A year after the initial incident, the galaxy had transformed in subtle but significant ways. Coffee had become a common thread connecting dozens of species. Diplomatic meetings now routinely included coffee service, with different species bringing their own unique brewing methods and blends. The Kralix had developed a bitter, highly concentrated version they called Warrior's Brew. The Tethrians created a crystallized coffee extract that dissolved in any liquid. The Andari made coffee vapors that could be absorbed directly. Each species had adapted coffee to their own biology and culture. Marcus Webb, who'd gone from a private making coffee in a mess hall to a celebrated cultural ambassador, found himself giving lectures on coffee history to audiences of aliens. His presentations were wildly popular. The funny thing, Marcus told Thane during one of their regular check-ins, is that coffee really isn't special. It's just a plant that happens to produce caffeine. Humans aren't special for drinking it. We're just the species that happen to introduce it to everyone else. But the way we share it is special, Thane replied. That's what Vexthor understood. It's not the coffee itself, it's the gesture of sharing something from our culture without expectations. The peace treaty with the Kralix was finalized that month. The ceremony was held at Outpost 7, the same place where everything had started. General Vexthor insisted that Marcus Webb be present, standing beside him as he signed the agreement. Private Webb, Vexthor said formally, though Marcus had been promoted twice by then, you performed a simple act of hospitality that changed the course of history. You offered a drink to a stranger who needed it. That is the foundation of peace, seeing others as worthy of kindness, even in tense moments. Marcus still looked uncomfortable with the attention. I was just doing my job, sir. Yes, Vexthor agreed. And if all beings simply did their jobs with such grace, perhaps we would need fewer diplomats and soldiers. The ceremony concluded with a coffee service, not a formal diplomatic ritual, but a casual gathering where representatives from multiple species shared drinks and conversation. It was messy, informal, and occasionally confused, as beings with different biologies tried to understand each other's brewing preferences. It was also genuine in a way that formal diplomacy rarely achieved. Thane stood with Vexthor on a balcony overlooking the gathering, both holding coffee cups. Do you think this will last? Thane asked quietly. Peace? Coffee culture? Both? Vexthor took a sip. I believe that what we have built is stronger than formal treaties. We have created connections between ordinary beings. The soldier who makes coffee. The general who enjoys it. The scientists who study it. The farmers who grow it. These are real relationships, not political abstractions. That sounds optimistic, Thane observed. I am optimistic, Vexthor replied. For the first time in my military career, I see a path forward that does not require violence. And it began with something as simple as a cup of coffee. Below them, Marcus was attempting to teach a Tethrian the proper way to froth milk. The crystalline being was clearly confused, but Marcus was patient and encouraging. Other species watched with interest, occasionally asking questions or offering their own suggestions. You know what I think? Thane said. I think the coffee itself was never the point. It was the excuse we needed to slow down, sit together, and actually talk. The caffeine helped, sure, but the real magic was in creating a ritual that made us pause and connect. Vexthor nodded slowly. You may be right. On my homeworld, we have a saying, the weapon that ends a war is the one never drawn. Perhaps coffee is that weapon, not because it makes us sharper or more alert, but because it gives us a reason to put down our actual weapons and share something instead. That's surprisingly poetic, General. I have been reading human poetry, Vexthor admitted. Coffee seems to pair well with contemplative literature. Your species has written extensively about both war and peace. I am learning much. As the sun set over Outpost 7, the gathering below continued. Different species, former enemies and uncertain allies, were sharing drinks and stories. It wasn't perfect, there were misunderstandings and awkward moments. But it was real, and it was hopeful. And it had all started because a tired soldier had brought a general a cup of coffee at exactly the right moment. Ambassador, Vexthor said suddenly, I have been thinking about the future. Coffee has opened many doors, but it is still just one plant. What other aspects of human culture might we be missing? What other simple things could transform our understanding? Thane smiled. General, if you think coffee is interesting, wait until I tell you about tea. Vexthor's eyes widened. There is another beverage? Oh, there are hundreds. And that's just the drinks. Humanity has thousands of years of culture we've barely started sharing. Then we have much work ahead of us, Vexthor said, raising his coffee cup in a toast. To cultural exchange, to understanding, and to whatever surprising revelations come next. Thane clinked his cup against the general's. To coffee, and the peace it brewed. Below them, Marcus Webb had successfully taught the Tethrian to froth milk, and the gathering erupted in applause. The sound was a mixture of different species' expressions of approval, clicks, chimes, rumbles, and cheers all blending together. It was the sound of a galaxy learning to be neighbors instead of enemies. And it all started with coffee.